Perhaps your body has been whispering to you tighter pants, heavier steps, lab results with words like borderline, pre-diabetes, elevated blood pressure. These are the quiet alarms of metabolic syndrome. Today, guided by Michael Pollan's In Defense of Food, we will not chase the next miracle diet. Instead, we will gently unlearn the Western diet and rediscover how real food can soothe the chaos inside your body. Please remember to consult your physician before changing your diet. Michael Pollan describes the Western diet as a pattern. Lots of processed meats, refined grains, added sugars, and industrial oils, and not much whole plants. This pattern feeds inflammation, raises blood sugar, and overloads our livers. It is not one single food, but the entire system of eating that gently pushes us toward metabolic syndrome. Like a slow, invisible current, it carries us away from health while we sit still. Pollan calls our modern obsession nutritionism, the belief that food is only a mix of nutrients like carbs, protein, and fat. When we see meals as numbers, we stop seeing them as living gifts from nature. Food companies love this. They can rearrange nutrients, print health claims, and sell processed products as heart-healthy or low-fat, even if they still disturb our metabolism. Your body, however, recognizes patterns, not marketing. Pollan offers one deceptively simple rule: eat food, not too much, mostly plants. For someone living with metabolic syndrome, this line can become a compass. Eat food means real food your great-grandmother might recognize. Not too much means respecting satiety, not punishment. Mostly plants offers fiber, antioxidants, and gentle energy. This is not a quick fix, but a way to walk slowly back toward metabolic balance. Imagine standing in the supermarket with two carts in front of you. One is full of boxes promising low sugar, zero trans fat, and added vitamins. The other holds simple foods, vegetables, beans, whole grains, eggs, nuts, some fish. One cart matches the marketing of health. The other reflects the wisdom of centuries. Which cart better serves a body struggling with high blood pressure and rising blood sugar? The answer may surprise you. Metabolic syndrome often shows up as a widening waist. Visceral fat, the deep fat around organs, acts like an overactive chemical factory. It releases hormones and inflammatory molecules that disturb insulin, raise blood pressure, and raise triglycerides. Pollan explains that the Western diet, rich in refined carbohydrates and poor in fiber, feeds this factory day and night. Our bodies are not failing us. They are simply overwhelmed. Pollan warns that whenever a big health scare appears, the food industry quickly redesigns products. When we feared fat, they offered low-fat snacks loaded with sugar. When we feared carbs, they pushed high-protein bars full of additives. These foods may change one number on the label, but still confuse our hormones and appetite signals. Metabolic syndrome is often not a lack of willpower, but a reaction to an industrial food environment. So what is food in Pollan's sense? It is something that once grew or lived and still looks close to its original form. A tomato, not tomato chips. Oats, not sugary cereal loops. Beans, not bean-flavored crisps. Real food tends to spoil, has few ingredients, and needs no bright health slogans. For a body fighting metabolic syndrome, such food offers steadier blood sugar, gentler digestion, and fewer toxic surprises. Pollan suggests a charming test. Don't eat anything your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize as food. Imagine her looking at a neon blue drink or a cheese-flavored puff. Would she nod or hesitate? Traditional diets that nourished generations rarely led to metabolic syndrome. It is the recent flood of engineered products that overwhelms our metabolism. When in doubt, ask the quiet wisdom of your ancestors. They knew how to eat without a nutrition label. Under Pollan's stories lies solid science. Diets rich in refined starches and sugars spike blood glucose, forcing the pancreas to release more insulin. Over time, cells stop responding well. This is insulin resistance, a core driver of metabolic syndrome. In contrast, whole foods rich in fiber slow digestion and blunt these spikes. The story is simple. The closer our food remains to its natural form, the kinder it is to our metabolic machinery. Pollan reminds us that every meal becomes part of our blood. High salt, high sugar, High-fat processed meals thicken that invisible river, raising blood pressure and triglycerides, injuring vessel walls. Over years, plaques form like rust in a pipe. But meals rich in plants, healthy fats, and unrefined grains bring antioxidants and anti-inflammatory compounds that gently polish and protect these vessels. What you eat is the climate inside your arteries. Nutritionism loves heroes and villains. Fat was once the villain, then carbs, then gluten. Pollan criticizes this narrow focus. Real foods contain thousands of compounds that work together in ways we still barely understand. When we isolate a single nutrient and put it in a pill or a bar, we lose the orchestra and keep just one instrument. For metabolic health, harmony matters more than any one superstar ingredient. Picture a typical day: a rushed breakfast pastry, a sweet coffee, a desk lunch from a vending machine, and a late, heavy dinner. Blood sugar rises and crashes repeatedly, hunger roars back, and energy fades. Sleep is restless, blood pressure creeps up, and morning labs slowly worsen. Pollan's message is not to blame, but to reveal. This pattern is built into modern life. Changing it requires not just willpower, but new rituals. Now imagine one small change. Breakfast becomes a bowl of oats cooked with cinnamon, topped with nuts and berries, and a side of boiled egg or tofu. Fiber slows sugar absorption, protein eases hunger, and colorful plants deliver antioxidants. Blood sugar rises more gently, cravings quieten, and the first hours of the day feel steadier. Pollan would say, this is not a diet trick, but a tiny return to eating food. Pollan suggests a powerful shortcut. Shop the outer edges of the supermarket where the fresh produce, fish, and dairy live, and avoid most of the inner aisles. If the ingredient list is long, full of unpronounceable names, or claims it is light, smart, or guilt-free, pause. Your body with metabolic syndrome needs clarity, not complexity. The fewer steps between farm and plate, the kinder that food is likely to be. Not too much is not about starvation. Pollan describes cultures where people stop eating when they are about 80% full. This gives the body space to digest without overload. For metabolic syndrome, portion size directly influences blood sugar and triglyceride spikes. Eating slowly, using smaller plates, and pausing before second helpings can become respectful rituals. You are not punishing your body. You are listening to its quiet signal of enough. Plants are more than side dishes. They are the quiet pharmacists of nature. Pollan emphasizes traditional diets where vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds form the base. They contain fiber that traps cholesterol, slows sugar, and feeds beneficial gut bacteria. Their colors signal different protective compounds. For a body wrestling with metabolic syndrome, mostly plants means surrounding each meal with allies, not enemies. Pollan does not demand that everyone become vegetarian. Instead, he suggests treating meat as a side dish or a special guest, not the main character. Traditional Mediterranean or Asian plates often use small amounts of meat to flavor abundant vegetables and grains. For metabolic syndrome, this pattern may mean less saturated fat and fewer processed meats and more protective plant compounds. Meat need not disappear. It simply steps back to share the stage. Pollan explores how people eating traditional diets, Mediterranean, Japanese, rural Latin American, often have lower rates of heart disease and metabolic disorders, despite not counting calories or grams of carbs. Their common thread is clear: minimally processed foods, many plants, naturally fermented products, and shared meals. It is not a brand new discovery, but the preservation of old wisdom. Our bodies still remember how to thrive on these patterns. Although Pollan writes for a general audience, he hints at a crucial ally: the trillions of microbes in our gut. Diets high in fiber and plant diversity feed beneficial bacteria that help regulate blood sugar, inflammation, and even appetite. Ultra-processed foods starve these microbes and favor species linked with metabolic disease. Think of each vegetable, bean, and whole grain as a small gift to these helpers living inside you. Pollan believes we should eat with all our senses, not just with calculators. The smell of soup, the colors of vegetables, the crunch of fresh fruit, all send signals to our brain and hormones that prime digestion. Fast, distracted eating in front of screens blunts these signals. For people managing metabolic syndrome, slowing down to truly see and taste food can help satiety hormones work properly, reducing overeating without strict rules. In defense of food, Pollan defends not only ingredients, but also the act of sharing meals. When families or friends eat together, meals tend to be slower, more structured, and less processed. Portions are more moderate, and emotional comfort does not rely solely on sugar and fat. For metabolic syndrome, the dinner table can become a quiet clinic where love, conversation, and simple food work together like gentle medicine. Pollan notes that as medicine became more specialized and high-tech, everyday food gradually left the conversation. Many people with metabolic syndrome receive prescriptions before they receive cooking lessons. Medications can be life-saving, but without changing what fills our plates, they often fight a losing battle. Please always consult your physician before altering any treatment. But also remember, your kitchen is part of your long-term therapy. Pollan describes how, when fat was demonized, food companies stripped it out and replaced it with sugar and refined starch. Ironically, as low-fat products spread, obesity and metabolic diseases surged. Without fat, foods became less satisfying, leading people to eat larger portions. Meanwhile, hidden sugars spiked insulin again and again. The lesson is humbling. When we try to outsmart nature with simplistic rules, our metabolism pays the price. Pollan shifts our focus from the amount of carbs or fat to their quality. Refined white flour and deep-fried snacks behave very differently from intact grains and nuts. For metabolic syndrome, a bowl of steel-cut oats and walnuts has a different effect than the same calories from donuts and fries. The body responds not only to macros, but to the package, fiber, structure, and the company nutrients keep. Consider 2 lunches. One is a fast food combo, white bun, processed meat, fries, and a sugary drink. The other is a homemade bowl, brown rice, sautéed vegetables, beans, and a drizzle of olive oil. The total calories may be similar, but their journeys in the body differ. The first floods the bloodstream quickly, the second digests slowly, with fiber buffering each step. Over months and years, such choices bend the curve of metabolic risk. Pollan points out that many modern cultures now eat almost constantly: breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, late dessert. For a body dealing with insulin resistance, this near constant flow of calories keeps insulin elevated and fat locked in storage. Traditional patterns often had clearer meal times and fewer snacks. You do not need to force long fasts, but even simple pauses between meals can give your metabolism room to breathe. Pollan argues that simply cooking at home is a quiet revolution against the Western diet. When you cook, you control salt, sugar, and fat. You naturally avoid some additives and oversized portions. For metabolic syndrome, a return to the stove is not about perfection, but about reclaiming agency. Even 1 or 2 home-cooked meals per week can begin to change your relationship with food and with your own body. Imagine your first small victory, replacing one fast food dinner with a simple home-cooked stew of vegetables, beans, and lean protein. As it simmers, your home fills with the scent of real food. You sit at the table, not in the car. Your blood sugar still rises, but not violently. You sleep a bit more deeply. Pollan would say that such a meal defends not only your health, but also your humanity in a rushed world. With Pollan's ideas, a trip to the market becomes a different experience. You walk slower in the produce section, noticing shapes, colors, and seasons. You read fewer front labels and more ingredient lists. You place whole grains, beans, nuts, and fresh proteins into your cart, leaving many boxes behind. For someone with metabolic syndrome, this quiet shift at the store is often more powerful than any latest supplement trend. Pollan highlights how sugar hides in foods we do not perceive as sweets: sauces, breads, yogurts, cereals. For metabolic syndrome, these hidden sugars can matter as much as desserts. Reading labels for various names, like corn syrup, maltose, dextrose, becomes a form of self-defense. You do not need to fear all sweetness, but bringing hidden sugar into the light helps you choose when it truly feels worth it. White bread, many breakfast cereals, and polished rice are quickly converted into glucose in the body. Pollan explains that once the fiber and bran are stripped away, these grains behave almost like sugar. For metabolic syndrome, they can drive rapid spikes and crashes. Swapping to whole grains, where the grain remains intact, slows this process. It is like trading roller coaster tracks for a gentler hillside walk. Pollan contrasts traditional fats like olive oil, butter in moderation, and nuts with modern industrial seed oils, heavily processed at high heat. Some of these oils, especially in fried and packaged foods, may promote inflammation when overused. For metabolic syndrome, focusing on simpler, less processed fats in reasonable amounts aligns with many traditional diets associated with better heart and metabolic health. Again, the source and processing matter. Pollan notes that in many societies, food media, shows, ads, social feeds, has turned eating into constant entertainment. We watch others cook elaborate dishes while we heat instant noodles. For a person with metabolic syndrome, this gap can feel painful. But Pollan invites us to bring some of that creativity back home. Simple but beautiful plates, new herbs, colors, and textures. Joyful, mindful eating can coexist with metabolic healing. Pollan distinguishes between true hunger, the body's need for energy, and cravings triggered by stress, ads, and habit. Ultra-processed foods are engineered to be hyper-palatable, salty, sweet, and fatty in precise ratios that override fullness signals. Whole foods, on the other hand, bring a slower, deeper satisfaction. For metabolic syndrome, learning to ask, "Am I truly hungry, or am I seeking comfort?" becomes a kind internal conversation, not a judgment. Although In Defense of Food centers on eating, Pollan indirectly touches on our hurried lifestyle. Chronic stress raises cortisol, a hormone that can increase appetite, favor abdominal fat, and aggravate blood pressure and blood sugar. Rushed meals, eaten standing or driving, amplify this, creating even a small ritual. Sitting down a few deep breaths before eating helps the nervous system shift from fight or flight to rest and digest. In a later work, Pollan lists many food rules, but the spirit is already present in Defense of Food. Short, memorable phrases that act like guardrails. Eat only foods that will eventually rot. Don't buy breakfast cereals that change the color of the milk. For metabolic syndrome, such rules reduce decision fatigue. Instead of counting every gram, you follow a few wise sentences that quietly shape your daily path. Living with metabolic syndrome can feel like a battle against your own body. Numbers on scales and tests may seem like accusations. Pollan's gentle perspective reminds us much of what is happening inside you reflects an environment and culture that drifted away from real food. Your body has been trying to adapt. With each whole food meal and each mindful bite, you are not fighting your body. You are finally giving it what it has long needed. Pollan often links eating to the broader lifestyle. Traditional communities not only ate differently, they also moved more naturally. A simple daily walk after meals can help muscles absorb glucose, easing the burden on insulin. For metabolic syndrome, gentle activity paired with real food acts like a duet for healing. Please consult your physician before changing your activity level, especially if you have heart or joint concerns. Metabolic syndrome does not arise overnight. It is the memory of thousands of meals stored in your cells. Pollan encourages patience. Just as it took years to develop, it may take months and years of better choices to soften, but your body is remarkably forgiving. Research shows that even modest weight loss and dietary changes can improve blood pressure, triglycerides, and blood sugar. Each day of better food writes a new chapter in your cellular story. A simple Pollan-inspired practice is to literally shrink your plate. Studies show that people naturally eat less when serving size appears generous on a smaller dish. For metabolic syndrome, even a 10 to 15% reduction in daily calories can gradually improve metabolic markers. No need for obsessive counting. The environment nudges your appetite toward balance. It is a quiet architectural change in your home that echoes in your bloodstream. Pollan often invites us to notice colors on our plate. Different pigments in plants, deep greens, reds, purples, oranges, signal a range of phytonutrients that act as antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents. For metabolic syndrome, aiming for a rainbow at each meal becomes an easy visual rule. Instead of strict grams and percentages, you simply ask, how many colors can I invite onto this plate today? While not prescribing a specific menu, Pollan highlights traditional foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, and miso, fermented by friendly bacteria. These foods can support a diverse gut microbiome, important for metabolic health. For some people, small daily servings of such foods may gently improve digestion and inflammation. If you have digestive conditions or immune issues, please consult your physician before significantly changing your intake. Pollan's approach allows room for pleasure. The goal is not to ban every sweet or snack, but to make them occasional, chosen treats rather than daily habits. For metabolic syndrome, this means planning when to enjoy dessert and fully savoring it, instead of grazing unconsciously all week. A small piece of real dark chocolate, eaten slowly, can satisfy more deeply than endless low-quality sweets eaten in a rush. Pollan encourages us to move beyond abstract theories and observe our own bodies. After a heavily processed meal, notice your energy, mood, and sleep. After a whole food, plant-rich meal, notice again. Over time, these experiments reveal patterns more convincing than any advertisement. For metabolic syndrome, tracking waist size, lab values, and how your clothes fit, together with how you feel, can become a gentle feedback loop for change. Many people with metabolic syndrome approach food with fear of carbs, fats, or every gram on the plate. Pollan invites a shift from fear to curiosity. Instead of asking, will this make me fat? Ask, is this real food? Where did it come from? How will I feel afterwards? Curiosity opens space for learning and kindness. Fear shuts us down. Your plate can become a place of exploration, not just restriction. Pollan shows how cultures protect people through shared food habits. Even if you live alone or feel far from tradition, you can create your own microculture. Maybe you decide that dinners are always at the table, phones away, or that Sundays are for cooking big pots of beans and soups for the week. These rituals become a protective shell around your metabolism, gently guiding choices without constant struggle. Armed with Pollan's insights, your next medical visit can change. Instead of only asking about medications, you might share your new food habits and ask how they fit your treatment plan. Doctors and dietitians can help tailor Pollan's general principles to your specific conditions, allergies, and medications. Please always consult your healthcare team before making major changes, especially if you take blood sugar or blood pressure drugs. Close your eyes and imagine yourself 5 years from now. Your waist is a little slimmer, your lab numbers quieter, your steps lighter. You sit down to a meal that would make Pollan smile. Mostly plants, real ingredients, cooked with care. This future is not built on perfection, but on hundreds of small, mostly wise choices. Metabolic syndrome is part of your story, but it does not have to be the ending. Michael Pollan's simple invitation, eat food, not too much, mostly plants, can become a lifeline for anyone living with metabolic syndrome. You do not have to change everything tonight. Choose one small action. Swap one processed snack for fruit and nuts, cook one meal this week, or shrink one plate. Please discuss your plans with your physician so they support your treatment. If this journey spoke to you, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs hope. Today, let real food begin defending your life.